You've eaten their products since before you could read. The red bag in the Halloween bowl, the brown wrapper in your school lunch, the vending machine at 11 p.m. when nothing else was open. You have spent money on Mars products every single year of your adult life, and you have never once heard a member of this family speak publicly about any of it. No IPO, no press tours, no shareholder calls, no interviews, just silence, deliberate, engineered, protected silence behind one of the most valuable private empires on Earth. There's a building in McLean, Virginia, with no sign on the outside, no logo, no name. Former employees have compared it to the CIA. Inside that building, decisions are made that affect what 8 billion people put in their mouths. The Mars family is worth $117 billion. Second richest family in America. They own the world's #1 pet food company, the world's largest candy brand, a global rice empire, a chain of veterinary hospitals. And as of 2025, they just bought Kellanova for $36 billion. For Pringles, Pop-Tarts, Cheez-It, and Eggo waffles, paid in cash, no fanfare, no press conference, just a check, signed, filed, done. This is not a story about candy. This is a story about rejection, revenge, exile, and empire. About a father who abandoned his son, a son who never forgave him, and a century of ruthless, obsessive, secretive wealth building that started with a woman teaching a sick child to dip chocolate in her kitchen. This is the story of the Mars family, and they will not be pleased that we're telling it. September 24th, 1883, Glenwood, Minnesota. Franklin Clarence Mars is born. His father runs a flour mill. His mother, Alva, stays home. And sometime in his early childhood, Franklin contracts polio. Polio in 1880s. Minnesota is a sentence, months of paralysis. A mother spending hours beside a bed trying to keep her son's hands and mind occupied. What Alva Mars chose was candy. She taught her son to hand-dip chocolate, to understand the chemistry of sugar and heat and patience. Something about those hours left a mark that no amount of failure would ever erase, because failure was coming, quite a lot of it. By 19, Frank had started his first candy business. It failed. He started another. It failed. He married, had a son, and the marriage collapsed too. The son, Forrest, was sent to live with his grandparents in Canada. Frank barely paid child support. Third business, failed. He remarried, fourth business, the Morrow Bar Company. Tacoma, Washington, 1911. For most people, 4 failures by your late 20s is a clear message from the universe. Frank Mars refused to read it. By 1920, relocated to Minneapolis, he had found his footing. Milton Hershey had proven chocolate could be industrialized. Sold cheaply to everyone. Frank Mars smelled opportunity. And in 1922, he got a call from his estranged son. Forrest Mars was 18, studying at UC Berkeley, when he reconnected with the father who had left him. He had spent his entire childhood in Canada, raised by grandparents, watching other kids receive letters and visits from their fathers while his own barely acknowledged his existence. He had built himself from nothing, worked jobs, paid his own way, earned his place at Berkeley and later at Yale. Somewhere between resentment and calculation, he agreed to meet Frank in Minneapolis. Father and son sat at a soda fountain. Frank was talking about the Morrow Bar, the difficulty of shipping it long distances without falling apart. Forrest looked at his chocolate malted milkshake, looked at his father. "Why don't you put chocolate malted milk inside a candy bar?" Frank listened. He went back to his factory. Experimented with nougat, light, airy, whipped, combined with caramel and dipped in chocolate, something that tasted like luxury but cost a nickel. He called it the Milky Way. First year, 1924, $800,000 in sales, for a company that had been losing money 2 years earlier. Frank scaled, moved to Chicago in 1929, built a plant that ran around the clock, hired his son Forrest, now a Yale-educated industrial engineer, to come work beside him. Snickers launched in 1930. Three Musketeers in 1932, right in the depths of the Depression. By 1932, Mars Incorporated was generating $25 million in annual revenue. The man who had failed 4 times had built one of the most important candy operations in America. And that is when Forrest Mars made a move that would change everything. In 1932, Forrest Mars walked into his father's office and demanded 1/3 ownership of the company. He laid out his case, the Milky Way, his idea, his engineering work, his contributions to production and distribution. Frank Mars said no. Forrest was handed a check for $50,000 and the foreign rights to the Milky Way. Then he was shown the door by his own father for the second time in his life. Here is what you need to understand about Forrest Mars in this moment. He did not grieve. He did not collapse. He opened a ledger in his mind and he began calculating. In 1932, Forrest Mars rented a small factory in Slough, England, and began producing a chocolate bar he called, with deliberate cold provocation, the Mars Bar. His own name, his own bar, his flag planted in foreign soil. But before he could scale, Forrest understood something most ambitious men never admit. He didn't know enough. So he went to Switzerland, got a job at a chocolate factory under a false name, as a worker, on the floor, learning the craft from the ground up while the company that employed him had no idea it was training its future competitor. He came back sharper. The Mars Bar launched in Britain. Maltesers followed in 1936. Both dominated a market that had never seen quality at this price point. Then he looked sideways at a different industry entirely. In 1934, the same year his father died of heart failure in Chicago, Forrest bought a British company called Chappell Brothers, canned dog food. His father died, and Forrest's response was to buy a pet food company. Not because it was sentimental, because he had looked at the market and seen exactly what Frank Mars had seen in candy, a fragmented industry with no dominant brand and an enormous number of animals that needed to eat every single day. Cold, precise, correct. By the late 1930s, Forrest had built a European empire from nothing. Candy, pet food, operating entirely without his father's name, his father's money, or his father's blessing. And it still was not enough. 1940, Forrest Mars comes home, control of Mars. Incorporated has passed to his father's second wife and her brother, Forrest, the firstborn son, the architect of the Milky Way. The man who built a parallel empire across an ocean, locked out. He needed leverage, he needed capital, and he needed a product that could get him back inside. In Newark, New Jersey, Forrest partnered with Bruce Murray, son of the president of Hershey Chocolate. Hershey provided chocolate, capital, and military contracts. Forrest provided the idea. He called the product M&Ms, Mars and Murray. Here's what almost everyone misses about M&M's origin. They were not designed for children. They were designed for war. Forrest had observed soldiers eating chocolate pellets coated in a hard sugar shell that kept them from melting in the heat, a chocolate product that could survive a soldier's pocket in North Africa, in the Pacific, in a canvas bag in the middle of summer. The military agreed. M&Ms became one of the few candy products with exclusive access to rationed wartime chocolate. Millions of soldiers ate them. And when those soldiers came home and stood in grocery stores with their families, they recognized the little round candies in the bag. M&Ms went commercial, and they exploded. By 1949, with M&Ms generating enormous profit, Forrest moved on Bruce Murray. He applied pressure, financial, psychological. He manufactured doubt until Murray no longer trusted his own position. Murray sold his 20% stake for $1 million. Forrest didn't flinch, didn't celebrate, just signed the papers. M&Ms now generate over $2 billion annually. Murray got $1 million. Forrest got everything else. Through the 1950s, Forrest built M&Ms into a cultural institution. Melts in your mouth, not in your hand. 1954. One of the most effective advertising slogans ever written. But even as M&Ms became a household name, Forrest never lost sight of his real objective. He wanted his father's company. For 15 years, he had watched his father's second wife, and then his half-sister run Mars Incorporated, competently, without ambition, without his ambition. He waited, built, strengthened, acquired, and in the early 1960s, he began. Not a dramatic, hostile takeover, not lawyers and headlines, quietly, methodically. The way you approach something you've already decided is yours. By 1964, he had merged his company with his father's. By 1967, complete operational control. The son sent away with $50,000 and a foreign candy bar license now ran everything. On his first day as the man in charge, he walked into headquarters and eliminated all the executive offices. Every desk, every private corner suite. Gone. In their place. An open floor plan where every employee, from the lowest paid factory worker to the president, sat in the same space. And every single person, including Forrest Mars himself, was required to punch a time clock. He called his employees associates, not workers, partners. He paid them exceptionally well, and he demanded perfection in return, without apology, without warmth, and without the pretense that his standards were negotiable. One former associate described working for Forrest Mars as being inside a machine run by a man who had decided long ago that sentiment was a liability. In 1973, Forrest retired, handed control to his children, left behind 5 principles: quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, freedom, that still govern every decision Mars makes today. Then he moved to Nevada and refused to speak about any of it. But the story wasn't finished, because what Forrest had built in candy and pet food was only half of what Mars was about to become. There is a building in McLean, Virginia, that you have almost certainly never noticed. No sign above the entrance, no company logo, no indication of who occupies it or what they're worth. That building is the headquarters of Mars Incorporated. Former employees, speaking anonymously because that is the only way people who have worked here ever speak, describe an atmosphere unlike any corporation they have encountered. The secrecy is not performative. It is structural, cultural, enforced. The Mars family does not give interviews. When a photograph of the family was published without permission, Mars Inc. reportedly paid $20,000 to prevent the image from being reused. They're not hiding because they have done something wrong. They're hiding because they believe, with complete conviction, that visibility is a liability. Public companies have shareholders. Shareholders demand quarterly calls. Quarterly calls mean analysts and journalists and activists picking apart every decision. Forrest understood this before most people understood capitalism, and every generation since has treated privacy not as a preference, but as a weapon. Most people think of Mars as a candy company. They should be thinking about animals. What Forrest began in England in 1934, that small dog food acquisition born from opportunity and calculated spite, has become the largest pet care operation on Earth. Pedigree, Whiskas, Royal Canin, Cesar, Sheba, Nutro, and then the veterinary side, Banfield Pet Hospitals, inside PetSmart locations across America. Mars, Blue Pearl Veterinary Partners, Mars, VCA, one of the largest veterinary clinic networks in North America. Mars acquired it in 2017 for $9.1 billion. Onicura across Europe. Mars, Antec Veterinary Diagnostics. Mars. The company that started by teaching a sick boy to dip chocolate now controls a meaningful percentage of the medical care your pet receives. The pet care division alone generates over $20 billion annually. Almost nobody talks about it. Because Mars doesn't talk about it. August 14th, 2024. Mars Incorporated announced the acquisition of Kellanova for $35.9 billion. the largest consumer packaged goods deal since Kraft and Heinz merged in 2015. A transaction so large that even Mars, sitting on $6.6 billion in cash, needed $29 billion in bank financing to complete it. What they bought? Pringles, Pop-Tarts, Cheez-It, Eggo waffles, Rex bar, Rice Krispie treats. International cereal operations across 145 markets, 50,000 new employees overnight. The reason is simple. Sugar is declining. Health consciousness is rising. The regulatory pressure on ultra-processed food is tightening. For a company whose identity was built on chocolate bars, that is existential pressure. Kellanova was the bridge. Salty snacks, breakfast foods, products that carry less moral weight in a world increasingly anxious about sugar. And because Mars is private, because no analyst can demand answers on a quarterly call, because no activist can force a spin-off, they made this bet on their own timeline. Quietly, patiently, without asking anyone's permission. The deal closed in early 2025. Kellanova's CEO stepped down. The stock was delisted. The brands disappeared into the Mars snacking division. And in McLean, Virginia, in a building with no sign outside, the family added another chapter to the story they've been writing for 114 years. Since 2001, Mars has been run by professional non-family management. The family owns everything, controls everything. But the day-to-day operation has been handed to executives who understand, without it ever being stated directly, that they serve at the family's pleasure. Current CEO Paul Weyrauch has grown annual revenue to over $50 billion. He oversaw Kellanova. His primary job, above all else, is to protect the empire while it passes to the next generation. The fifth generation is coming. The grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Forrest Mars are being prepared, in whatever private, deliberate ways this family does everything, to inherit a company worth more than the GDP of most nations. They will not announce their plans. They will not ring a bell on Wall Street. They will simply continue. When Forrest Mars Sr. died on July 1st, 1999, at the age of 95, his children had been legally prevented from selling the company as long as he was alive. He had structured his ownership to require his personal consent for any sale. Forrest Mars, even from beyond the grave, had written himself into the terms. The boy abandoned in Canada, the student exiled to England, the man who learned chocolate making under a false name in a Swiss factory. He won, and then he engineered it so winning could never be undone. The building in McLean reopens in 2026. Renovated, geothermal heating, solar panels, pet-friendly spaces, modern, sustainable, forward-looking. It will still have no sign outside. And the next time you reach into a bag of M&Ms or unwrap a Snickers, or buy your dog a bag of Pedigree, just remember, you're not buying a product. You are participating in a system built across a century by a family that never wanted to be seen and was never forced to answer for any of it. They built it so completely, so quietly, that you never even thought to look.